there's only so much your brain can handle, especially when it comes to, listen carefully, learning and retention, and even more importantly, retention under pressure. Because I want you to remember what you're learning when you're stressed out. If I'm teaching you something about wellness or well-being, I want you to remember that when you're having a rough day. And so you've got to be able to recall it much more efficiently and effectively under stress. And so cognitive load theory says this: I've got to limit how much information I present at any given time, because our brains are biased. And so if I give you my 10-point checklist on how to be a happier person, I'm not going to remember all 10, right? There's primacy bias, there's recency bias, there's a bunch of biases that are going to make one or two things more important to your brain than the other things. And so speakers have to be really super cautious about how we shape our message and deliver it in such a way so that it is brain friendly and not overloading to our audiences. That's something that I think is really important for many speakers to think about.
Welcome to Speakers and Stages, the series that goes beyond the mic and behind the scenes of powerful events. I'm your host, Lena Castle, event strategist and speaker experience expert. Yes, we're going to sit down and talk with event industry experts, from backstage chaos to center stage clarity. This is where the strategy meets the spotlight. Let's get into it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, a man whose expertise bridges the world of science and success, who skillfully leverages neuroscience to help people accelerate their achievement in both professional and personal realms. John has decades of international speaking experience and leadership positions at several Fortune 100 companies. His commitment to the industry is reflected in his 30-year membership with the National Speakers Association. And beyond the boardroom, John has demonstrated excellence in athletics as the captain of the Jamaican national racquetball team. Woo, shout out to them. Competing in 4 world championship games and bringing home medals for his country. When he's not transforming minds, you'll find him near the shores of North Carolina, where despite his mastery of applied neuroscience, he remains humbled by his ongoing quest to smoke the perfect brisket. And we got to talk about this because I lived in Texas for some time, John. Everyone, please join me in welcoming John Edwards. Thank you so much, John, for being here. And of course, you have an amazing background, a lot of experience, and so we'll just jump right in.
I'm honored.
Thank you, John. Now, we have to talk about this because you have a very unique approach, blending neuroscience and speaking. Can you tell us a little bit about how you first realized that the brain was the key to helping audiences create that lasting change?
Yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to be on your show. I feel honored and privileged. I'd like to tell you that it was a very detailed, strategic, analytical, thought out process that strategically led me to where I am today. But no, none of that really happened. I landed here by the grace of God and quite a bit of luck. So the story goes back to when my mother first migrated to this country and then brought me over and wanted me to be the first male in our family to get educated. And so when it came time and I graduated from high school and I was thinking about college, true story, I'm thinking to myself, all right, I'm going to go to college. This is really going to be the next step in my mother's big dream for me. But quite frankly, I don't want to work hard. I saw a lot of my friends stressing out about SAT and pre-SATs. And I just thought, I don't want to stress that hard about academics. Now, I didn't dare say that out loud because my mother was a very strong disciplinarian. But in the back of my head, I'm thinking, all right, if I'm going to go to this college thing, what can I do that's going to be super, super easy for me?
Yeah.
And then I realized that the area of psychology is an area I don't have to work hard in. It comes naturally for me. I'm easily attracted to it. I spend voluntary free time looking into it, researching it. Math, on the other hand, that's hard work. I was happy with a D plus in math, right? But psychology was a natural attraction for me in high school. I would take college level psychology curriculum. I would become a peer counselor. So anything on the psychological realm, for some reason, was easy for me to understand and retain. And that carried not only through college, but clearly into my professional life as well. I was never able to let go of my deep love and attraction for understanding human behavior and neuroscience.
Wow. Now, and when we think neuroscience, and sometimes people like myself and many others can overcomplicate it when we're thinking about it. In your mind, how do you present what neuroscience is and how do you simplify it for those who are listening today?
Yeah, great question. If you go back just about a decade ago, getting anyone to pay attention to neuroscience was incredibly difficult to do.
Mhm.
It was considered intimidating. It was considered this realm that folks just did not understand. And then
Yeah.
came along a number of different researchers and scientists who bridged the gap, who were able to transfer the language and the discoveries in the lab into a much more applicable, a much more easier to understand, digestible methodology that could translate into the workplace. And so all of a sudden, understanding how the human brain works started
Mhm.
to drive a lot of leadership and executive development in corporate America. And so now today we talk about it freely and we joke about it freely and we bring it up in conversations because we now know that you don't need a PhD to understand how the human brain works at an application level. So we refer to it as applied neuroscience. How do we take what's going on and discovering and the depth of science and then bring it to a place where, boy, how does that help me to do, think, make better decisions, relate to people better? How does that help me to be a better leader, influencer? How does that help me to be a better human being? And so it's really the conversation now today is just really evolved quite rapidly than it over what it's been in the last couple of decades.
Now, is this included in that ebook that you have called Move?
Yeah, so thanks for asking. Actually, we have got quite a few, and a new book that just came out hasn't been announced yet. So your audience is probably the first ones to hear about it. We've done really a very soft launch, and it's on the
Mhm.
neuroscience of executive presence. So that's my seventh book that's being released. The Move book is out now in both hard copy and soft copy as well. And it's really written for folks who want to understand what's the difference between presenting information and inspiration. And
Ooh.
I have been fascinated by that for a long time. And the reason I'm fascinated is because you and I, your
Yep,
audience,
yep.
all of us have sat in the audience where we've listened to a speaker and gone, hey, that was pretty good. And then a month after that, we're like, wait, who was that again? And
Mm.
we've also been in the audience where we've sat and listened to a speaker who were like, wow,
Yeah.
I'm going to change something. I'm going to stop doing that, or I'm going to start doing that, or I'm going to be that. I'm committed to this. We literally make a decision to change something in our lives for our own improvement. And so I've
Mhm.
wondered, what's the science behind that? What's happening in the minds of the audience? What's happening? What's the speaker doing that's different from information presenting to inspiration? Like, what's the scientific difference between that? And so the Move book is the first of a series that dives into allowing folks to get a greater insight into what's required in that space.
Now, if we dived into that a little bit deeper, John, and breaking down when somebody's inspiring versus, oh, let me get a lot of information out. I wonder, and you tell me, what does that look like from your perspective when somebody's overly inspiring versus giving a lot of information, or somebody that's giving a lot of information and there's no inspiration? What's happening for the audience when either or is happening?
Yeah, both can be effective.
Okay.
However, they're most effective in specific environments. For example, I'm a corporate trainer. I need to give you compliance training, safety training. I know in my previous professional life, I spent some time as a first responder. In those kinds of environments, as a medical first responder, there are times when I need to be subject to deep information sharing, information dissemination. I need to know things, right, in order to do my job correctly, or in a corporate environment, in order for us to operate safely and efficiently. There are times when information dissemination is really the primary objective of an interaction between an audience and a speaker. Now,
Wow.
there are also times, though, when a speaker is looking to inspire an audience to be better, to do something, to improve something. So, for example, I speak a lot at leadership conferences and summits and trying to help leaders to be better at navigating this ambiguous, volatile environment that we are in and are going to be in for quite some time. So they need to understand what's happening in their brains, but even more importantly, they need to know what they can do to be
Yeah.
better leaders in volatile times. That requires doing something different, right?
Mm.
So if you're like me, and you've got decades as a leader in corporate America,
Yes.
you recognize that today is so dramatically different than what yesterday was. If I was a good leader 2 decades ago, those skills
Mhm.
may still be important, but there are new things that I need to do in this ever changing, have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow environment. And there's some skills I might need to let go of. So
Yeah.
there's decision making that has to occur. And inspiration is what's going to, as a speaker, allow my audience to get to this place where they go, you know what? Yeah, I
Oh,
do have to change that. I do have to think differently. I do have to treat people in a different way than I did before. So that's when inspiration becomes significantly important in that relationship between the speaker and the audience.
oh my goodness. Because you're shifting a belief
Yeah.
and be able to have someone to shift what they've always been thinking. Am
Mhm.
I hearing you to say that inspiration may help for them to make that move from,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah. I would suggest actually that inspiration is vital. Not only will it help, but it's absolutely mandatory. It's necessary. That sense more because at best,
yes.
so here's how I define motivation and inspiration. At best, if I'm a motivating speaker and I motivate you, you might make a decision to say, you know what? I am going to do this with my meetings in the future. When I walk into a room, here's how I am going to change that. Inspiration
Mhm.
moves you to a different commitment level where you realize once you get back in the workplace, like sometimes we just get back into old routines, but we need to make that decision over and over again, especially under stress. I need to remember, oh, I went to that training seminar with Lena and she told me I needed to do this. And so we're making the decision over and over again,
Yeah.
especially under stressful situations. So there's information, motivation, inspiration. Right? If we think about it as a continuum,
Yeah.
and really good speakers understand how to drive inspiration in a way that allows people to be more successful. And it's absolutely necessary for behavior change.
I love that because I think sometimes for speakers, moving someone from, okay, this is what they've always been thinking, and now I'm helping to challenge their beliefs, or I'm bringing this to their attention, or something that they didn't know existed as a new opportunity for them to do work better, or to show up better, or be more effective or more efficient. And you are changing even the mindset for myself of what that could potentially look like. And sometimes we may just automatically think, oh, yeah, I'm just going to present this in, but no, where's the spark? Where's the inspiration that allows them to want to move and do that versus, oh yeah, they're going to do it because I said so.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Intrinsic motivation. How do we get folks to light that fire within to want to adopt behaviors they know are good for them?
Now, John, when I think about emotional experience beyond great content, what makes an event or a speaker unforgettable?
Oh, that is a great juicy question. And one word comes to mind, and that word is experience. Experience. What is the experience that speaker's creating within the relationship between the speaker and the audience? And as I coach a lot of speakers, and one of the things that we often have to navigate is speakers are just passionate about their content. They're passionate about their topic. They're passionate about their history, their expertise. And that is awesome. It's
Yeah.
also necessary. However, one of the things that we need to help speakers to understand is this: it's not about what you want to say,
Yes.
it's about what's important for them to hear.
Ooh.
So as a speaker, it's great. And for your listeners, please forgive me if you're a huge manatee fan. This is just the first one that popped in my head. So if I'm a save the manatee speaker, all right, that's wonderful. But is that significant for my audience? Is that motivating? No, is that inspirational for my audience? Is that meeting them where they are? Is that important to them and their core values? Is that important to accelerating their success? So we've got to evaluate our content against that. And so once we've done that, now we're poised. Now we're prepared to get into this area of inspiration and
Mm.
motivation and the experience that we're going to create for the audience. It's a relationship between us and the audience. And that relationship is really founded on the am I providing something of value to you? And the greater the value, the greater the capacity for our relationship to lead to a place where you have such a remarkable experience. It has changed something in you for the better.
Oh, that's so good. Experience changes everything. I think that instead of just presenting things as always, how are people receiving the information? How are they experiencing the information? That's a whole nother level that we would have to go. I know that's a whole different conversation, just digging deeper into what does
Yeah.
experience feel and look like in real time for
Mhm.
someone that's presenting information, especially if they think that they're gonna fall asleep. They're like, oh, it's neuroscience. And they try to check out before you even start. So, how do you bring them into an experience
Mm.
that excites them and inspires them to say, oh, I didn't know this, or I can use this information? And that's awesome, John.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And when you do it well as a speaker, it will linger. That's another litmus test, right? Are they still thinking and talking about it a week later, a month later, right? Have that lingering effect. We call it the sticky factor. Do you have that effect on your audience where there's still value and it's months after they've heard you?
Mm.
Ah, that's key. And that's what really separates elite speakers from the rest of the crowd.
Now, who are your top three speakers that you think right now are they have that sticky kind of effect?
Oh, gee, I can't imagine a scenario where I answer that question without getting in trouble.
Oh, especially listen, everyone, he's in the National Speakers Association, Meeting Planners International. Don't wanna offend anybody.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm coaching quite a few speakers right now. I'm mentoring groups of speakers. I've got colleagues in the National Speakers Association that are among the best in the world.
Yeah.
And I'm just surrounded by tremendous talent and surrounded by a lot of folks who are incredibly hungry to get better. And
Yeah,
if you knew some of these folks, you'd look at them and go, I already think you're good at this,
yeah.
but they're just hungry to get better. They're just not
Mm,
satisfied with being good enough. They want to have a greater impact on their audience because they care so much about the people they're in front of. And so it's just a privilege to be in that community and to be able to spend time with those folks.
Now, switching gears a little bit, John. Now, when we think about the real behind the scenes work, I know that there's some certain pieces behind the scenes that's really essential for a speaker to be successful, as I know that you're coaching different speakers. Now, what is that, some of that real behind the scenes essential work that must happen for a speaker to be successful?
Wow. Whew, that could be a whole nother podcast
Yeah.
event. Let me do my best as a speaker to try to be succinct, which is not one of my strong suits. So actually, you know what? NSA has a beautiful way of categorizing these things, right? And they break it into four areas: expertise, eloquence, enterprise, and ethics. And ethics actually permeates all of them. So let's talk about the other three. Enterprise is the business of running a speaker business. And as you intimately know, it's not a speaker strong suit, right? We need folks like you to get us smarter and sharper about running the business because many of us get into it because we have something we want to say that we think is of value. We have some expertise and experiences that we can bring to the platform to help other people, but we're not so good about behind the scenes office kinds of things. And so that's the enterprise piece. The eloquence piece is how we're coming across on the platform. The art of building that relationship that I was talking about with the audience. Everything from movement to eye contact to rate of speech to just an entire package of how am I coming across and being captivated to that audience, the way
Mm,
deliver my message. And expertise comes from, am I even qualified to do this? I mentioned that I speak a lot in front of leadership groups. Well, if I've never been a leader, speaking in front of leadership groups about leadership disqualifies me. But the fact that I've held leadership roles in a few Fortune 100 companies has given me the experience and some of the expertise to be
mm,
able to relate to my audience in a much more intimate way. So there's a number of different things every speaker needs to lean in on, some which will come more naturally to us, and others we're going to have to work a little bit harder on or get help
okay.
working on it, like some of the behind the scenes back office activities, those kinds of things.
Now, when you think there's a couple things I heard. So, like the back office and your support team, what does that look like for a speaker to be successful, having the right team supporting their brand, their vision, their goals when they show up? Even if they're speaking for 30, 45 minutes, how does that play into the success of a speaker?
I'm going to come back to this word that I love so much with this. It's the experience, right? What's the experience that we're creating for everyone? And not every speaker can afford a team. Maybe you just have a virtual VA or a couple of virtual VAs or whatever it happens to be. But really, as soon as you can, you want to be surrounded by a supportive group of individuals that are helping to shape that experience. And the experience has to happen on a number of different levels. You're going to have the organizer or the meeting planner or the client, the person who's primarily in charge of interfacing with you, interacting with you, maybe even the person who hired you on behalf of some other organization, group, or team. And so that's one experience that you need to be highly concerned about. And then there's the experience from the platform, the relationship we've referenced with the audience. That's another experience.
Yeah.
And then there's one that we don't often think about, and that's the aftercare experience. I'm done speaking. I'm now off the platform. What happens next? And
Mm.
speakers are not, sometimes we're not as good in that space as we really need to be. So there's multiple experiences that we're creating, really four in essence. The pre-show, pre-speaking experience that we're creating with whoever we're working with, the actual experience with that planning individual, our primary point of contact, the experience with our audience, and then the experience that's going to occur after the presentation is over.
Oh
And
my,
so we're thinking about those things on four different levels.
wow. So there's multiple experiences happening at different times. Not to scare any of you guys that are watching, but it's really to be mindful of those things and subconsciously aware that everything that you're doing leading up to an event, it sounds like day of, and even afterwards, there's all of these different types of touch points that represents how you are to be experienced as a
Mhm.
speaker, either it be with the organizer, the audience, and
Mhm.
those who you thank when you leave. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
That's really good. And then I like how you just gave it, hey, it's different buckets. It's not like it's all concurrently just everywhere and haphazard, but if you can be strategic somehow, maybe, I don't know, John, when I think AI, have you been thinking about how maybe automating or using AI to be able to include that into the work of a speaker?
Yeah, it's hard to do business anymore without thinking about it. It has become so prevalent. It's in the hearts and minds of my clients, and so it has to be
Mm,
something that I'm paying very close attention to in terms of how it's interfacing, interacting with my business and business structure. And then we've got to pay attention, of course, to the legal ramifications as well as it's emerging, right? So speakers are using it in a variety of different ways, and so it's something that's here to stay. I think it's unavoidable
yeah.
in the way that it's going to have to integrate into our workflow. And I think for our team, it'd be silly of us to not think about how it might make ourselves more efficient and effective. Because we just talked about experiences. In non-personal contact experience is important, but the most important aspect of creating an experience for another human being is the contact, is that personal interface. So every time I interface with you, every time I interface with an audience member, those are the most impactful moments for defining and enhancing an experience. And
Mm.
so that's something AI will never be able to do for me. However, if AI can do a bunch of other things for me, it frees my cognitive capacity up where I can fully lean into those moments of experience creating with other human beings.
Oh, that's so good. And as I'm thinking about how human beings are interacting with one another outside of AI, I'm thinking about the speaking industry in itself, especially in the last few years. I just wonder if you could share with my audience, how do they begin to think about behavior changing impact for their audiences? Like, how can they start doing something immediately? What can they start doing immediately to create that real behavior changing impact with their audiences?
Yeah, great question. I had the privilege of speaking at a National Speakers Association seminar for other professional speakers recently, and so I really was giving this quite a bit of thought. And I think one of the things that we've seen in the industry, again, we talk about speakers bringing a passion and a purpose and excitement and energy to the platform, right? Because we've got information to share and we're just so excited to share that. But what we've noticed is that we oftentimes share too much. And you think of, especially for someone like me who's in the research almost every day, I can't wait to teach what I just learned. And I am a perfect candidate for overwhelming you as an audience member. There's so much I want to share with you, and teaching is my gift and my passion, and so I just want to, yeah. And so it leads to what we refer to in neuroscience as cognitive overload or cognitive load theory. And cognitive load theory basically says this: there's only so much your brain can handle, especially when it comes to, listen carefully, learning and retention, and even more importantly, retention under pressure. Because I want you to remember what you're learning when you're stressed out. If I'm teaching you something about wellness or well being, I want you to remember that when you're having a rough day. And
Yeah.
so you've got to be able to recall it much more efficiently and effectively under stress. And so cognitive load theory says this: I've got to limit how much information I present at any given time because our brains are biased. And so if I give you my 10-point checklist on how to be a happier person, you're not going to remember all 10, right? There's primacy bias, there's recency bias, there's a bunch of biases that are going to make one or two things more important to your brain than the other things. And so speakers have to be really super cautious about how we shape our message and deliver it in such a way so that it is brain friendly and not overloading to our audiences. That's something that I think is really important for many speakers to think about.
That is gold. I think we all are experts in our own right. I know that we are all experts in our own rights. And when you want to just be able to say, oh my goodness, if only you knew this and this. Or I think what we have to do better at is inviting those into the next steps in conversations in a time where we can go deep. Now, when I think of that, John, I see that banner behind you about your retreat. And is that a place and a time where people can go deeper?
Oh, yeah. Thank you for asking that. That is a 2-day intensive retreat, literally at the beach here on the coast of North Carolina. And we go very deep. We're leveraging neuroscience to help each individual become their best self. Now, whether you're an executive who's speaking all the time, or a corporate trainer, or a professional speaker, if you're in front of a group for any reason, this is something that can benefit you. Now, one of the things that we're doing is you're not coming here to be a John Edwards. No, you're coming here to be the next best you. And so we basically are guaranteeing folks that we can move them to the next level of effectiveness based on so many of the things that we talked about. We'll talk about cognitive load theory here, right? We'll talk about how to shape a message in such a way that is extremely brain friendly. And we'll literally have practice sessions where you can deliver, and we'll bring neuroscience into helping you understand how you can maximize your own style to have a greater impact on the experience you're creating with your audience.
Wow. And it's a 2-day retreat.
It's, yep, 2 full days. Yeah.
Okay. And they get to go diving, and I'm gonna just go back and just make sure I hear all of this correctly. So they get to go dive deeper, and it's about their brand, how they're showing up, and you're going to be able to immerse them into the neuroscience side of how they can use their talk to really maximize and even to take it to the next level wherever they are, if they're in front of an audience, as a trainer, as a speaker, if they are a leader. So even if they're in the workplace leading in some type of capacity, they are also candidates that could.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. You summarized that perfectly.
Oh, good. And when is this retreat, John?
We're holding them throughout the course of the year. In fact, as we're recording this today, there's one at the end of this week that's coming up. And so folks will get the latest update on the website. But we hold a couple of them throughout the year. They're usually at fairly small sizes, so we can truly pay attention to each individual and ensure that. And I will just share this, folks, that right now 100% of the folks who've attended said it exceeded their expectations. And so we're excited that we're continuing to work through a formula that we think is going to be beneficial for folks.
Oh, this is so good. And I like how, again, marrying science and success and making it simple for those to understand of how they can leverage their brand, their position in this marketplace and pool of other experts and those who are in the industry. And so I appreciate you coming out today. Now, if any of you are like, I need to learn more, I need to connect more with John, if you want to find him on LinkedIn, or you could visit edwardsgroup.org, or yeah, LinkedIn is another place. That's a whole nother world. And then also we got to make sure that we get your ebook, so that I can provide that to my audience as well. I would love, love, love for them to have access to that. So if you could send that to me, I would love for them to read more about your thoughts and your expertise in this space.
Superb. Yeah. Thank you so much for this conversation. This was really exciting for me, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, John. We'll see you very soon on a stage or anywhere if it's near the beach, or making some of the best brisket. I'm gonna have to try it for myself to confirm. Thanks so much, John.
Thank you.
Take care.